Alright, so this is the Algebra 2 mid-chapter 4 review. Oh, it doesn't work for me, does it? Don't worry, I got it. Okay. First question here, graph f of x equaling negative 4x squared plus 8x. Label the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept's an easy one. What's that?
0.
0. So at the end of this equation, there's nothing there. Usually there's three terms. Usually it's a, b, and then c. So there's a plus 0 at the end, so my y-intercept would equal 0. Okay, the next thing I'm looking for is the axis of symmetry. What was the formula for the axis of symmetry? X. Yep, so x equals negative b over 2a. So what is my b up here then? An 8x, but the x isn't a part of it, so just 8, so it'd be negative 8 over 2 times a. What is a? Negative 4. Okay, so if I simplify that, I get negative 8 over negative 8, which turns into positive 1. Okay, that's my axis of symmetry. And then what's the third thing I need here? Vertex. Well, what do we do with the vertex? That actually uses the same formula. Vertex is a coordinate. What do I know about this 1 here? That'll always be my x value. And how do you find the y value with this equation? You plug it in. So then we can take our calculator out and we can plug it in. If you don't have a calculator, go grab one, please. So if I plug it in, negative 4, parenthesis 1, close off the parenthesis, plus 8, parenthesis 1. And what do we get for the vertex? 4. Okay, and then once I have that, I have everything ready and labeled to go. Okay, so then from that step, we can graph it. Y-intercept of 0, so you put a dot at 0. Axis of symmetry is at 1. And what is the axis of symmetry again? That's that vertical dotted line that we draw in. And I will label it x equals 1, so I need to label that for the test. And then the vertex is at 1, 4, so over 1 and up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And what do you know about frowning? It's frowning. How do I know it's frowning? Good. Because of that negative out in front, so it's frowning. And what do I know about this distance from here to here? Shouldn't that be the same distance in the other direction on the axis of symmetry because it folds over itself? So then now I would know that that is my parabola. Questions on that? And then you would label your vertex as 1, 4. Okay, so it does say label. Just make sure that we label that tomorrow on the test. Questions on that one? Alright. Next question. Determine whether f of x equals negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 5 has a maximum or a minimum value, and then find that value. So you got to determine, is it a max or is it a min? And you would know that strictly just looking at it. You should be able to know if you draw out what shape it would be. It's either smiling or frowning. You would know if it's a maximum or minimum, and then we can find that max or min. Is this parabola smiling or frowning? Frowning. Okay, so it is frowning. And why do I know it's frowning? Negative in front of the x squared. Okay, so is this a max or a min? So now I know it's a maximum. Okay, and then how would I find that value? What's another name for this thing called? This is called the vertex, right? So how do you find the vertex just like we did in the last one? X equals what? Negative b over 2a. So again, it's always alphabetically x squared x number, so a, b, c. So negative what? Negative 4 over 2a. Negative make a positive 4, so 4 over negative 4, which gives me a negative 1. So I know the x-coordinate of the vertex is negative 1. How do you find the value of it, the height? Plug it in. Yep. Again, when you plug it into your calculator, we need to remember to put them in parentheses. And did we get 7? Okay. So then find the maximum value. The maximum value would be 7. Questions on that one? All right. Next question. Solve that equation by graphing. And then it says, if exact roots cannot be found, state the consecutive integers between which the roots are located. What keywords up here? Roots. What's a root? Another name for that? Gotta write it nicer. Zero of the function. What's the zero of the function mean? Where it what graphically? Crosses the x-axis. Okay. So solve by graphing. Well, what things can I do to graph that I know how to do? I know I can find what things, just like the first problem. Y-intercept, right? What's the y-intercept up here? 6. So if I have a graph, I know that it crosses at 6, because that's the y-intercept here. And actually, let's take a quick pause here. Let's, before we even do anything, we actually have to do what here to this equation before I can even... Yep, so we can move the x squared over, sure. Yep, so we want to move the x squared over, we can. So what would it actually be for my equation then if you move this over? 0 equals negative x squared plus x plus 6. Okay? And then we can graph it now. So now, yep, the y-intercept is 6. Okay? Then I want to do the axis of symmetry probably. So what's the formula for that? X equals what? Negative b over 2a. This is the axis of symmetry. So do that. And then you can find the vertex. And then I would make a table after that. What would my b be in this x equals negative b over 2a? A 1, right? There's a 1 in front of this x. So negative 1 over 2, and then what's my a? A negative 1. So that's actually a 1 over a negative 2, or a negative 1 over negative 2. Which, what does that simplify into? Half. Okay, I'm going to put half in the middle of my table. And then what other values am I going to have to find then? the numbers on each side of that table, right? So what's on the what whole numbers on the both sides of half? What are on each sides of a half? 0 is one side, what's the other side? 1, and then this would be -1 and 2. And we'll try those, and if we can see where it crosses, then we don't have to do any more. So take your calculator out and start plugging those in. So your vertex would be 6.25, and then you just have to plug in the other numbers. How do you bring this whole equation back so you don't have to retype everything?
Second enter.
Perfect. So second, enter, and then you just hover over the numbers, and you can plug in your other numbers, so -1. And we get 4. We know what 0 is, right? What's 0 equal when x equals 0? 6, that's the y-intercept, right? If this is the axis of symmetry, if this number is the axis of symmetry, what should happen from here to here? And here to here? Should be the same if it's symmetric, right? Let's check it, make sure it is. It looks like it is, so then that's a 6. We're actually, and then that's a 4. Okay, so it is symmetric. You can start graphing it. So at -1, we'd have a height of 4. At a half, it's at 6.25. At 1, we're at 6. Again, axis of symmetry would be that dotted line that goes through there. This would be at 4, 4 at 2. Okay, now what's the problem here? We're looking for the roots, right, or the zeros. Have I found that? Oops, have I found that yet? Any of the boxes over here. Have I found the roots yet? No. Okay, so I need to actually go one number on both sides in the other direction. Okay, let me show you one other thing about a table on your calculator. It might speed it up a little bit for you on the test. If you plug this equation into y equals, you can actually just look at the table on there and find all the answers as well. So this is just another way of plugging it into your calculator. If you go to y equals and you go -x squared plus x plus 6, and instead of graphing it, hit second table. And I look at my values. Now they didn't have the 6.25 in there, but you see how they have the 6 and the 6 here and here? And then they have the 4 and the 4. And then what's on the other two sides here? 0 and 0. So if you plug that in your calculator normally, you would have gotten 0 and 0. So that table might be useful for you on the test to check out. And again, also on the test, you can also check your answers using your calculator by graphing it to see if it looks correct. 3 and 0. Okay, so now I know it crosses here and there. Okay, on the, oh, I missed that there. On the test, you'll have a nice graph that'll look a little better for you, or you can actually mark it nicely. Okay, so what are my exact roots here? Here And here, or the exact zeros of the function. -2 and 3. So my answer on here would be -2 and 3. That's this spot here and that spot there. Okay, so those are my exact roots. Questions on that? Alright, let's look at the next one here. Okay, solve this problem by factoring. What is factoring? 2 sets of what? Parentheses, yep. So then 2 sets of parentheses on your paper.
Please excuse the interruption. Can I have the following students please report to room 6 for registration? Cody Curran, Maya Barlow, Brenner Grinstead, Levi Meyer, Macy Neschheim, Noah Rolfe, Ellie Sorensen, Joaquin Salgado, Riley Willis, and Jay Swinger. Thank you.
You ask yourself, what times what gives me the first? Because what are the things you're filling in the parentheses? The first and the last. So those are the key numbers that you're looking for. What times what gives me those things? Which of those, the first or the last, which one has only one choice? The last. What's the only choices that give me 2? 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. Does it matter where I put the numbers? No, it doesn't. What matters is the matching up of the next numbers. Okay, so I finished doing the last. So now I got to figure out what times what gives me 15. 5 and 3. Okay, let's try a 5 here. And then what times what gives me x squared? So then 5x times 3x. Okay, and now it's a guessing and checking portion. And what are we trying to get? We're trying to get the OI, the middle term. Am I adding or subtracting to get to my middle term? I will subtract because that's negative there. So what does the outside here give me? 10x. What does the inside give me? 3x. Will that subtract to give me a positive 7x? Does it?
Yeah.
Yep. How do you get a positive 7x? What's the signs that got to be on these? Positive and then a negative. So the 3 is negative. Well, I can't put a negative in front of the 3 here, so where's the negative have to go? Out in front of this one. Do you see how could it be -1 times positive 3? Gives me -3. 5x times positive 2 gives me positive 10x. Okay? So now I have factored it correctly. What's a check you can do to see if you factored it correctly? Can we FOIL this back out and it should get me back to this original answer. So that's a check to make sure you did it right. Okay, I know we did it right, so we're good. So then I gotta solve, because it says by factoring, but it says what? To solve by factoring. So how do you solve that? Equal to 0, yep, so 5x minus 1 equals 0, and 3x plus 2 equals 0. I would add the 1 over, and then I would divide by 5, so x equals 1/5. And then I would subtract my 2 over. And then I would divide by 3. And x equals 2/3. Questions on that?
Yeah,
Negative.
Oh yeah, good call. Gosh, that could have been bad. People out in internet land, YouTube land would have got the wrong answer. Questions on that one? Alright. There will be a question something like this on the test. They'll give you the area and they'll give you the dimensions on the side lengths, and they'll want you to find those dimensions, what they exactly are. What do I know here? Area is equal to 96. What shape am I given here? A rectangle. What do we know about a rectangle in the area formula? Length times width, correct. So then that's how I set it up. Area equals length times width. So it doesn't matter which one of these is the length and which one of those is the width? It doesn't. So length times width equals 96, the area. So you gotta FOIL that out first. What are these things called right here? Same thing, same, difference of two squares when you simplify it, yep, but what's the name for these guys when you multiply the same terms with one's a plus and one's a minus? It starts with C. Conjugate, yep. So these are also conjugates of each other, and it will be the difference of two squares when you simplify. So x times x is x squared, the outside is negative 2x, inside is positive 2x, and then the last is negative 4, equaling 96. So then these cancel, and I'm left with x squared minus 4 equals 96. Okay, now one way is you could move this 4 over and do the square root. I'm going to do it practicing factoring. So I'm going to minus the 96 to this side, which gives me x squared minus 100. And then yes, this is the difference of two squares. Okay, so how do I factor this? Practicing factoring. Two sets. First off, how many terms are up here on this one? 2. When there's 2 terms, I either got to determine is there something in common on both of those? Right now, there's nothing in common on both. So then the only thing it could be is a difference of two squares.
Square root.
If you moved it over, you could square root it, yes. So you could add this 100 to the other side and take the square root and you get the answer. I'm going to factor it though. What times what gives me x squared? X times x. If you ain't first, you're last. So what times what gives me 100? 10 times 10. And how does my middle term cancel out? One's a negative and one is a positive. Okay, and then if you checked it, how does that cancel out? Well, that would be a 10x on the outside. On the inside, it would be a negative 10x. And then that's why it cancels out and gives me nothing. Okay, so now how do I solve that once I have factored? Yep, so it'd be x minus 10 equals 0. So you'd add the 10 over and get x equals 10. Or you'd go x plus 10 equals 0. And you minus the 10 over, and we get x equals a negative 10. Now, when it says find the dimensions, so if you did it the other way, if you added this 100 over right away, which you could do, you get x squared equals 100, and then we take the square root. What do you got to remember when you take the square root? How many answers do you always get? 2. Okay, so then it'd be a plus or a minus on that square root of 10. Okay? So now my last step here is to find the dimensions though. Can I have the dimensions of a negative value here if I plug in negative 10? No, so negative doesn't work, so what's the only one that would work?
Positive.
Positive 10. So what's 10 plus 2 give me? 12 by 8. Okay, so my answer would be, it's a 12 by 8 for my dimensions. Questions on that one? Okay. Alright, this is the next question. The height of h in feet, I used x instead of h, didn't I? Oopsies. Alright, I'll fix my problem here. You can read it though while we're doing it. is the rocket, that's the equation that's given to you there. Okay, so the height, h in feet of a certain rocket, t seconds after it leaves the ground is modeled by that equation. Find the maximum height reached by the rocket. So what key word just came up here? Maximum. What's another name for a maximum? A vertex. Okay, do we have a formula to find the vertex? Because that's what they're asking right here. This pretty much says what? Find the vertex.
Yes.
What is the formula for the vertex? X equals?
Negative B.
Yep, so x equals negative b over 2a. Okay, do that on your paper for me. And then once you find that, then find that maximum, the exact value that we're looking for. So negative b, again it's a, b, and c. So then it'd be negative 32 over negative, not negative, sorry, 2a, 2, and then negative 16. And then negative 32 gives me a negative 32 over 2 times negative 16 is also negative 32. So you get 1 for my answer for the x. Okay, and then how do you find that answer for the maximum height? Plug her back in, right? So you plug that 1 back into the equation here and here. And does that give me 26? Okay, so then if you plug that back into my equation for my vertex, you plug 1 into here and here in your calculator, and it gives me a 26. So what's the maximum height in feet? 26 feet is how high it goes. Now how could you use your calculator to also calculate the maximum? Because that calculator does that for us. So if you plug the equation in your calculator into y equals,
Carter Edwards to the office, please. Carter Edwards, please come to the office.
okay, so if you plug this in your calculator, then I hit zoom 6 to graph it. I can't see the peak right now, can I? So what are you going to have to do if you do it on your calculator? And you can check it on your calculator to know you're exactly right or not. I can go window and change my y maximum and lift it up to maybe 35. And then hit graph. So I can see my peak. And how do you calculate the maximum height? Second what? Calculate the max. And then left bound is on the left side of the peak. You can hit enter. Right bound, you're going to go over the top of the peak to the other side and hit enter. Those arrows should be pointing together like they are up there. And hit enter. And is it 26? Okay, so then that's another way of checking it on your calculator. So you can use your calculator to check it as well. Okay? Some of these probably I think are just easier to just do it like that though. Okay? Alright, next question. graph that equation by making a table of values and find, I'm gonna give you a chart that says, I'm gonna actually give you this, and then I'm gonna give you a table that you'll have to fill in as well. So I'll give you a table with an X and a Y axis. Okay, so on your paper right now, find